Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Today, I wanted to finally do a video on my color process for comic books. It's a highly editable format, which is great if you're not 100% sure on how you want the final look to be. Hopefully this is very straightforward. I like when videos get right to the point, so I will do my best to do that. And I will be using Clip Studio Paint today, but a lot of this advice is going to be applicable to really any program that you are using. So first things first, you want to start with your flat colors. I used to section everything with just really vastly different colors. I call them clown colors. I don't actually do that anymore. Now I try to do the flats with close to the final color. If you're not sure what you want your final colors to be like at all, just do your best. Or even do a color composition. Really, that just means slapping on some color very haphazardly with, a paintbrush. Like, it's not really in the lines, you're just kind of getting a feel for the color. But because I've already colored page 1 of this comic, and you'll see me reference it, I kind of already have an idea of what I want the final colors to be. So yeah, so I start out with the, again, close to the final colors. It's gonna save a lot of time when you do it that way. Alright, so we are going to start speeding things up here. But yeah, specific to Clip Studio Paint, their fill bucket is really intelligent. You can change the settings on it so it suits your needs as far as filling gaps in your line work and whatnot. It makes flatting so much easier and faster. It's like very much built for comics, which Clip Studio Paint is really built for making comics. So I've started embracing this software and I really like it. You certainly can use any other program. As far as flatting everything, it may just be a little more of a process, a little more manual. You can see me here, I did have to manually go in and color her face, but a lot of it I could just use the fill bucket, and that was really handy, and like I said, really sped everything up. But yeah, if you need help with settings as far as your fill bucket, this is not the video for you. But there are plenty of easy to understand instructions out there on YouTube and on, the internet. So check that out. This is kind of just more about my process. I do find there's a few different ways to work. You can do everything in the same section of the process and then do the next one. What I mean by that is you can flat the entire page, the entire project, then go back in and do your different layers. Or you can just color a whole panel beginning to end and then do that with each panel. I do find for consistency's sake, it is often better to do the same part of the process across the project and then go back in. But we also have to just work with our attention span, and sometimes those two things just don't go together. So that's totally fine. I find it's more important to just follow the attention span, get it done, and sometimes perfect consistency is just not going to happen. So I kind of go in and flat everything, but then I just show you my examples on the one panel. Okay, wonderful. We are done flatting. So, next part of the process, we're gonna add some, I guess you could say, ambient shadows slash shadows. And the way that I do that is I do a multiply layer. I often like to do shadows that are not, I don't use pure black or gray. I like to use a color. So light pretty much always has a color of some kind. Very rarely are we really dealing with like stark black and white. So a lot of times I like to use purple shadows. I don't know, that's just kind of my style. So as you can see, I go in here on the multiply layer. I use an airbrush and the selection tool. The selection tool, of course, is going to give me a controlled area for the shadow to go into. And the airbrush tool is going to give me kind of a soft gradation of the shadow. So it's not too harsh. You certainly can cell shade. That looks great too, and I kind of use a combination of like gradient, like gradation slash cell shading. You can kind of see me go in and just fill certain spots. I'm just trying to go with the flow and the feeling, whatever looks right. Cell shading is great for comics because it's much faster than going in and kind of painting or just doing like more complex mark making. So yeah, you can definitely cell shade with this method. I just like the pizzazz of a little gradation. I would also like to add any spots that the edge is maybe too hard. I like to go in with the blend tool, whatever that is called, and just kind of soften the edges a little bit. Again, Clip Studio Paint has really good tools, really designed for comics. So this is also not sponsored, but hey, Clip Studio Paint, hit me up. But yeah, I really like their blend tool. It's really nice, really editable. Okay, so now we're done our multiply layer. This is where I start to kind of bounce around a little bit, but I will have on the screen my order of layers. I think that's important. So first thing for this project, because it's kind of a nighttime scene, I want to make sure that I am considering that the entire time I'm coloring. Especially after doing those sort of ambient shadows. So I go in with a gradient. I try to match the gradient on the first page so you can kind of see me go back and forth and color pick. But yeah, so again, you can really bounce around with your layers. I think it's just important to keep them in the same order, just so that it is still editable. Another benefit to doing different, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess color treatments on different layers is, again, it remains editable. If you hate something, you can scrap it and not lose all of your progress. Painting really doesn't lend itself to comics too much. A little bit of painting, maybe on like a top layer on top of all of the editable work you have done, is fine. It's just that comics go really fast. You need to move quickly, color quickly, in order to crank out as many pages as possible to really tell the story. I find having a painterly style can just be very time consuming. So it like I said, it just doesn't always lend itself to comic making. Okay, so we are now going in and adding our highlight layer. This can be a normal layer or a hard light layer. I prefer to do a hard light layer. I think here I accidentally start out with a normal layer, but that's okay. Yeah, so your highlights are going to be obviously opposite your shadows. I think it's important to consider, again, the color of the light. So because I've done purple shadows, I kind of want my, even if my light source is almost white, I'm trying to keep it warm. So it's kind of got a yellowish tinge to it in order to complement the purple shadows. Light and shadow are always opposites, so if you have a warm light, you're going to have a cool shadow, and vice versa. If you have a cool light, you will usually have a warm shadow. So again, opposite of purple is yellow. So the light is coming from the moon, so it's almost white, but we kind of lean into that yellow tinge. It's also important to consider not to cross what is called the terminator. So all that is the edge of the shadow. Basically, we don't want our highlight to cross over into the hard shadow, if that makes sense. If there's an overlap there, it's just like very visually confusing. So as you can see, I'm kind of keeping it in those spots that are not really touched by the shadow. Now, because this character has blood staining his shirt, I will be creating an additional multiply layer. That way that the color kind of seems like it's bleeding over and into the other colors. Normally, I don't have another multiply layer, but I consider them special effects layers. You may have multiple of those. So it's kind of an optional thing depending on your circumstances. You can also see me go in here with a normal layer on top of everything for the blood coming out of his mouth. That is again what I would consider a special effects layer. Okay, so now we're gonna do one of my favorite things, which is rim lighting. So again, they're lit by the light of the moon. The brightest spot is actually going to be on the edge of the form, which is basically their outline, contour line, you can say. So I go in, I create a layer, a new layer, and then I clip it to the one below it, which is my line work layer. So now wherever I draw, it will only go on top of the line work. And that just adds, again, that sort of three-dimensional dramatic lighting. Alright, and that's kind of it for this panel. Again, we want to work fast, so I think that's fairly fast. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!